Welcome to Saigon Times CEO Talk with Kiet Tran. Here we cover top leaders on top issues in top industries. Today, this episode, I do solar power because Vietnam's solar industry has gone from nothing to number one in Southeast Asia with 19 gigawatt of solar power in just 3 years. That's fantastic, fast and furious. But there are some issues, top issues. On the one hand, we have solar policy delayed for almost 1 year, compounded by hard lockdown for many months that makes solar power companies very difficult to stay afloat. Now, to top leader who will tackle this issue for us today is Mr. Mark Shorrock. He's the pioneer of UK wind and solar with over $2 billion of development in renewables. And at one time, 25% of Scotland's solar farm is from his doing. And his company, Shire Oak, is the leading solar developer in Vietnam. They also develop solar in Indonesia, in in Africa and South America and UK. And Shire Oak finances, build and operate solar rooftop for factory owners who wishes to go green. Hello, Mark. Welcome to Saigon Times CEO Talk. Great to have you. How are you?
I'm very well, Kit. Thank you very much. It's very nice to see you as well.
Last time we met, I remember it was in solar golden age of the solar industry. And ever since that meeting with you, I've had two questions. One is, what year did you actually go into Vietnam? And two, more important, how do you know it was the right time to take Shire Oak into Vietnam?
So, because Vietnam, until Pham Minh Chin's announcement of 2 weeks ago, was on a trajectory to do many new coal-fired power stations, the timing to come to Vietnam was like as soon as possible, because this is like the most dynamic country in Southeast Asia. It's planning fast growth, it's popular with all the manufacturers, but it was planning to power that growth with coal-fired power stations. So it wasn't so much as it's a good timing to come here, it was more, it was so important to come here and start to talk to the European funders who I know to say, come to Vietnam with us, make it possible that Vietnam can choose a different energy future, and make it possible that we can choose it to be a clean energy future with a mesh of hydro, wind and solar. So it just felt like it was so important to be here to try and help Vietnam make the shift, because there's not many countries in the world that have wind, have hydro and have solar. So there's not many countries in the world that can be 100% renewable energy. And a wonderful opportunity for Vietnam is no need to do coal, no need to do gas, just do 100% renewables. So really, once I found out about Vietnam's Master Plan 7 at the time, I felt I had to come here. And then when I read Master Plan 7 revised, and it still had 40,000 megawatts of coal-fired power stations in it, it became a real thing for me. I would be in London, and I would see a Vietnamese restaurant and go, oh, it's a sign, I've got to go to Vietnam. And then I'd meet a friend who had just come back from Vietnam. It was a sign, I have to go. So because this country was planning so much coal, I decided I needed to come here and bring some experience and bring money.
Well, first of all, what's Shire Oak? Who are your clients and what's your product? If you can give one example for us to clearly see.
Okay, yeah, very good. So our product is putting solar panels that we pay for on the roof of a factory so that we can offer cheap and green electricity to factories. So here in the south, our standard product is to find a big roof, maybe 5,000 to 20,000 meters squared. We put solar panels on that roof, and we can offer a discount to the EVN tariff with that electricity of about 20 to 30%, depending on exactly where it is and what sun hours that you have. We have brought here to Vietnam investment monies from Norway, from the Netherlands, from the UK, and that money wants to just own the solar panels for the next 20 years. And so we have to. Our job is to find customers, i.e. factories who sell goods, who would like their power to be green and cheap, and then enter into a contract with a factory to provide them with that power for the next 20 years, and then to operate and maintain the solar panels on the roof and to sell that electricity. So it's a very simple offering, and the money is just interested in owning the projects forever. So what we're really setting up is a sort of series of small generating stations on the rooftops of every factory that we can find, frankly, in Vietnam. And Europe has been on quite a journey. So when I first talked to European investors about coming to Vietnam, they were very sceptical. And as you mentioned in your introduction, you know, now Vietnam is the 7th most important nation in the world for solar power. And now the money wants to come here. And with COP and with Pham Minh Chin's announcement of no more coal, the money is saying, oh, we really should be in Vietnam. And so there's billions of dollars looking to invest and help Vietnam get to a clean future. So what we have here in Shire Oak is we have a sales and marketing team, we have a customer success team, we have a transaction team, we have a design team, and we have a build team, and we have an operation and maintenance team. So the idea is, if you have a factory, we can offer you an end-to-end solution that you don't have to pay for. We'll pay for everything, and we'll reduce your electricity bill by 25%, and we'll make sure if there's ever a problem with the system, we'll come and repair it within 24 hours.
Popularity. If solar power is so good, like we're talking about, me and you, we love it. How come it's not everywhere already?
Sure. But I think the reason why it's not everywhere already is that when you have a shift in an energy market, and Vietnam is just only beginning the shift. Vietnam is, let's go back to my home country, United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom we had something called the Central Electricity Generating Board. And we planned our entire grid network and our entire power network based on coal-fired power stations, gas-fired power stations, nuclear power stations. And we did not consider wind farms or distributed generation from solar. So the first thing that you need to kind of get your head around with solar is we're changing the energy system here. So you can see why people are a little bit nervous, because now you're thinking about investing in a company that's going to go and put solar panels on rooftops of factories, when before we have big central generation stations. Now we're talking about every building becomes a generating station. Very different. The load flows of the electrons, instead of coming from, say, Phan Thiet down here, or instead of coming from the Soc Trang on the coast up here, now every factory, every rooftop can become a power station. And so when you enter that shift, and we're in a shift now, really exciting shift, this whole decade is a shift. So you reinvent an energy system. And so when you start that reinvention, you need some pioneering companies. And we came here to try and help that pioneering phase happen. So there's now 4 or 5 companies. You have Shire Oak, you have Green Yellow, you have Sembcorp, you have SkyX. Now there's a few of us all trying to offer factories green rooftops. But we employ only 80 people. SkyX, I think, employ only 20 people. So it's still a nascent industry. It's not an industry employing thousands of people yet. It's an industry still full of pioneers like you and I, Kiet, who have started an industry. So quietly now we're pulling people. We have 2 people downstairs who set up Volvo factories in China. We have somebody downstairs who was working in fast-moving consumer goods. We have a whole team who've come out of working in the electronics industry. So we're trying to bring people to this new world, the renewable energy world, and train them with what we've learnt in Europe, so that we can scale a team here. But I think the reason you've not seen so much is because the original Master Plan 7 and Master Plan 7 revised was very much still a fossil fuel dominated master plan. Now with 8, and 8 when it gets revised after the COP pronouncements of the Prime Minister, now we're in an exciting place. Now Vietnam is recognising it could have cheaper power and clean power. And if it has cheaper power and clean power, all of the international businesses want to come here and will choose Vietnam. They'll choose Vietnam to come and make their goods. So it's a wonderful stroke of genius by the new Prime Minister.
So you're saying we will have solar power everywhere, just take a bit more time, we're in the changing phase.
And if I think about literally the last 3 weeks, Kit, I have done calls with a New York-based investment fund wanting to invest 100, rising to 300 million here in Vietnam. I have done calls with a Hong Kong-based investment company, similar sorts of numbers, 200, 300 million. I've done a call with a French-based investment company, 200, 300 million. So just those 3 calls in the last 2 weeks is offering us as in Vietnam, 300 to 900 million of new investment for this country, foreign direct investment into renewables. And that's what you're seeing now. It's just a movement of money that wants to back green. And because Vietnam is so blessed, I mean, you have to remember you are blessed. You have a young workforce, you have lovely positive people, you have a kind of can-do attitude, you have a let's do it tomorrow, not a let's do it next week attitude. and you have sun, and you have wind, and you have hydropower. Let's go and make cheaper and greener power for the country.
But just to cover one or two more difficult questions that we usually get is one I get from my friend is the life cycle problems,
Sure.
Which is to have solar power, you have to produce solar panels, and you have to mine the silicon, and then you have to transport it. So my friend would say to me, well, in the end, you're polluting just like everyone else. How do you deal with that question?
So I think simply, first of all, the energy that input into a solar panel in a country like this, as sunny as this, paid off in 6-9 months. So you've got 39.75 years of non-polluting power once you've amortized the carbon. That's point one. And the point two is all of the large manufacturers are signed up to end-of-use recycling. So 99.7% of a solar panel can be recycled and used again. So yes, you mine it once, but then once you've done it, you just put it into a perpetual loop. So solar's very close to being a circular economy.
Okay. A final question. Since I'm in the solar industry, I wonder, what's the most difficult question you've ever gotten?
I think the difficult questions are from people who struggle with being the new systems operator that is required, right? Because if you have had a long, thin country, as Vietnam is, not dissimilar to the United Kingdom, and dotted through the country you have large generating power stations, yeah? Now we're abandoning that, and we're saying that every home can be a power station, every office can be a power station, every factory can be a power station. And so the most difficult questions to answer are from the people who say, but it's easier to centrally plan the system. And you say, no, you can operate a system with distributed generation. You just need better forecasting, and you just need better modelling. But that's the most difficult question, is when you have somebody who's worked in central generation having to get their head around the fact that the electrons will now go the other way. The electrons don't need to be sent out into the countryside, because the countryside's probably got a solar farm that's sending the electrons back to the city. So the whole system gets turned on its head. So I think those are the most important but difficult questions, because technically you're rethinking every flow of every single electron in the whole country.
You're talking about centralized power system as opposed to distributed system where we put solar panel below the users, the consumers, right? And I believe that solar energy in Vietnam is moving towards solar rooftop, where they're using solar at the same place that they are consuming electricity.
And then, one of the great pluses for Vietnam is that will mean much less investment in transmission infrastructure, because you're using the electricity where you generate it.
And it seems like a lot of the central players, like EVN, oil and gas, Petro Vietnam, they're all moving into our sector also.
Have you seen that they've now started to announce renewables divisions? It's wonderful.
Oh, we love it. I love it.
It's
I have a
wonderful.
lot of colleagues, and I really want to continue the connection with them on the solar industry basis also, and use some of the oil and gas money to promote the environment.
Completely. I mean, look, I mentioned 3 phone calls I had in the last week. One of them's from an oil major wanting to now come and spend money.
Awesome. Now we're moving to another segment, which is the current events. Now, it's very difficult question I have to give you, but I still think it's 2 important questions to avoid. And I want to ask you, in this year of pandemic, and in the year of hard lockdown and delayed solar policy, how has it impacted you, and how does Shire Oak cope through it?
Yeah, no, good questions. So first of all, lockdown, when we look back on this lockdown, I think we will see it as positive. Living it, hard. But the world, every single human being on this planet had a collective experience. And everybody's come out of it wanting a world where they see their family more, where they want cleaner, greener power. Everybody's rediscovered blue sky. They've rediscovered clean air. So I'm a positive person. So I take positives from a global cathartic situation. From what happened for us, very simple. We went from thinking we were going to build 20 roofs a month to building no roofs for 8 months. And we had to find the money to pay everybody. And I tried to retain all the staff. I had to let some go. We went down to 55 staff from 85 staff, but I managed to keep 55 of our staff. And we did that by investing all the profits we made last year and our future investment. We invested in our people, and we kept on paying salaries. And so it was hard work, because you're trying to keep the business together in a time when you know you cannot win customers, because people are worrying about, can I feed my workforce? Do I have to move my workforce into the factory? Am I going to get any orders? So people have been dealing with much bigger problems. But what I see is happening on a global scale is where world leaders were worrying about COVID, people aren't worrying about COVID anymore on a global scale. Omicron, it's less impactful than Delta variant. So quietly, we as a planet will get used to COVID. So what's the number one thing we have to deal with? Climate change. You and I sitting here on the Mekong, Saigon River's here behind us, 100 metres behind us. This street behind us floods up to this level, up to my thighs. Climate change really matters here in Vietnam, right? So for me, you come out of COVID, and you go, right, what are the changes we need in society? Well, one of them is we've got to go green quickly, really quickly. And so, sitting here today, and I've just been for lunch where I was jotting down what our positives are of this year. And our positives of this year is we've got a partnership we're yet to announce with a leading financial institution to put solar on a massive 350 megawatts of their clients' roofs. We have a partnership with one of the biggest factory builders here in Vietnam, who wants to take us to see every single one of the 6,000 factories they've built here in this country. And we have a partnership that we have announced with Hoa Binh, which is the first, I hope, of many, and with Nam Dinh Vu, whereby with Hoa Binh and with Nam Dinh Vu, we're creating green industrial parks. And so those are things that have come out of the lockdown phase. So the ability to now to go to Hoa Binh's industrial estate in Long An, Nam Dinh Vu's industrial estate in Hai Phong, and say, let's make these green, that's a really positive end to the year, having it been quite a hard year in the middle of the year. And ultimately, we brought the first $120 million into this country this year from foreign direct investment. And next year I think we'll bring about $350 million of the direct foreign investment in. So it will end up being a positive period of life, a transformative period.
And I really admire how Shire Oak has turned this very difficult period around. So let's talk about the positive. Vietnam moving into 2022. Fair enough, pandemic is not over yet, but it's under control, at least now. What do you see about solar policy? Both of them, the regular solar policy and the DPPA, and the National Plan 8 and the COP26. Please share with us your plans.
So fundamentally, I have trust in public officials. I think they're thoughtful people who think ahead. Now, you've got a very brave politician at the head of your country in terms of Pham Minh Chinh, and he has said, we're going to change this country now. Massively strong move for Vietnam. Vietnam is now going to stand out above Malaysia and Indonesia and Taiwan and all the other countries in Southeast Asia, because it's made a bold move to say, we're going 100% renewable energy, 100% zero carbon. So what that means is that 2022 suddenly becomes very exciting, because Power Development Master Plan is going to have to be revised. You've got to take out all the coal out of it. You've got to put in way more rooftop solar, way more offshore wind, way more onshore wind. You've got to rethink hydro. You start to use hydro as a battery. You start to use it as a balancing. You perhaps think about having some other balancing pump storage capability or battery storage capability. So now finally, because of the Prime Minister's really strong move, this country can now invent itself based on what it's blessed with. Wonderful sun, wonderful wind, wonderful hydro. And if it wants to, because it's moving early enough, it can also decide, I'm going to make the solar panels, I'm going to make the wind turbines, I'm going to make the transmission equipment, I'm going to make the towers, I'm going to make the cables. So what I see now is a whole change in this country. As long as you keep Pham Minh Chinh and he doesn't go be Secretary General and he stays as Prime Minister, you have a bold leader who has set a policy that will be very beneficial to the economy, and will require a superb balancing of embedded generation, what we do. You've got these shallow seabeds out to 50 kilometres, so you can put lots of offshore wind farms out there. You've got all of Kontum and Yalai and all of the central highland provinces, Dak Lak, and just wonderful wind resource, Quang Chi. You know, you've got 7 provinces, 8 provinces that have got a great wind resource. And so what you do now is the really bright bit. You go, how do we invent a system based on renewable energy? And then you go deliver it. And what's really interesting from when I first said to my investor friends in Europe in 2017, I said, I'm going to go to Vietnam. And they sort of looked at me and went, well, why are you going to Vietnam when you could just do renewables in France and Spain and Sweden and, you know, and Belarus and Russia? And I said, because it matters. Because what Vietnam decides to do, the rest of Southeast Asia will follow. Right? And now that Pham Minh Chinh has made this announcement, the world will follow, not just Southeast Asia.
Do you have any misgivings for going into 2022? Anything that you're concerned about?
No. Only if the government did another lockdown. Only if the government panicked about Omicron, which is less virulent than Delta.
Okay.
So I think as long as we're very measured in our public health policy, and you enable the economy to recover because we know it's not a virulent strain of the virus, and we're just measured about it, then what can happen in 2022 is Vietnam can restore the confidence of the European manufacturers, which it needs to do, I think, and the international manufacturers, because people got a bit scared by how harsh the lockdown was. So assuming you don't have another harsh lockdown, then you're in a really interesting place, because orders, I've been talking to some friends in furniture and some friends in footwear, orders are through the roof. So the world wants Vietnam's goods, but they don't want it to be powered by coal. So therefore that's the exciting thing. Let's just go and do lots. So I'm very excited by next year. I think there's such potential.
You know, when I hear you talking about removing coal, I have to push back anyway, because what I hear from other people, they say that we need to have some coal and other some power plant that have a stable power source during the evening. But solar doesn't have that. It only has when the sun is.
Sure.
So I'm wondering, how do you address this pushback?
Really easily. So you create a very different pricing signal for hydro, and you have some standby generation of some description, batteries, combined cycle gas turbines, hydro that's used as pump storage. You manage. So if I think about National Grid in the UK, sorry I'm being technical for a minute, we pay generators to turn up, to turn down, we pay people to load shed, we pay people to increase demand, we pay people to lose demand. If we can create an investment capability effectively here in Vietnam that says to a factory, we can supply you power at 5 p.m, it's going to be a bit more expensive because today it's not windy. But as it's windy today, we can sell you cheaper power. The beauty of a system without central generation is you just balance as you go. And you just have some standby generation. So we will need some standby generation, but what you don't want is the centralised polluting power. And you don't need it. And you don't need it particularly here in Vietnam because you have hydro, and you have wind, and you have solar. It's not like you just have one of the 3 kind of princesses at the ball. You've got all 3 princesses. So then you just balance it. And what do you need? You probably need some combined cycle gas turbines or some hydro that works as pump storage for that piece on a non-windy day when the sun has set and the factory is still open. That's all you need.
Basically pricing also to reflect the fact that coal is polluting the environment, and that needs to have a price, right?
I mean, coal's gone. Coal, you can't finance coal because no financial institution will fund it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. Indonesia, you compared a lot now in this hour with the UK, but we're interested in the Vietnam market, solar market, compared to Indonesia market. Where's the difference and where are the similarities there?
So Vietnam?
And Singapore.
Yeah. So Vietnam.
And Indonesia.
So Indonesia, Vietnam. Vietnam, absolutely magic, marvellous. Indonesia, still in the cold dark ages. Chalk and cheese. When we talked to, so at COP we met with the president of Indonesia, Pak Jokowi, and we said to Pak Jokowi, you need to copy Vietnam. So we think Indonesia should copy Vietnam. How does it copy it? It creates some sort of tariff for solar. It creates some sort of targets for solar. It rolls out large-scale solar across its different provinces. and it does it at a cost comparable with coal. But Indonesia isn't there yet. There is. I cannot connect to a substation in Indonesia. I cannot develop at my own risk a project in Indonesia on the ground. I can do factories. So right now we focus on the factories who are here in Vietnam, who have sister factories in Indonesia.
But you believe in it since you have operations there, and it seems to be
I
going
think Indonesia is the fourth most populous country in the world, but it needs to copy Vietnam.
Okay.
And when it does, it'll adopt solar like you've adopted it.
Okay. This final segment is about removing the CEO and looking into the person behind the CEO.
Okay, fine.
I did some research. I understand you're a filmmaker, very successful. How is filmmaker and CEO in renewable differences and similar? What's your view?
So first of all, if you make a film, you have to create a project, the script. You have to get it so it's good enough to be able to attract money, and it's got to be able to attract a director, and it's got to be able to attract actors. And each time you make a film, it's a brand new project, starting from scratch. So if you can do that, you can make a renewable energy project happen. Because a renewable energy project is much, much easier than making a film happen. So what the film industry teaches you is everything is possible, and you never take no for an answer. Never, ever take no for an answer. So the similarities are people, wonderful people. The film industry is full of wonderful people. Renewables is full of wonderful people. Creating projects that start from scratch that nobody's thought of before. That's what a film is. It's what a solar park is. It's what a wind farm is. It's what solar on a roof is. Pulling teams together. Downstairs we have a wonderful team of 80 odd people. We pulled that team together from scratch, from coming to this country knowing nobody. And that's what you do every time you make a film. You pull a team together to make a film. So what the film industry taught me, and it was a great training, was how to put teams together, how to raise money, how to never take no for an answer, and how to make a project happen. And if you've got those skill base, that applies then to all walks of life, and particularly renewables.
You got 3 cameras on you right now. Do you miss that feeling? Do you miss the filmmaker
So
background?
what is lovely is putting a team together to make a project happen. So the thing I miss is when you make a film, you then hire about 150 people and you go and make a film and you tell a story. But the story that we're telling here in Vietnam is of a green future from nothing. So the impact that we can have here in Vietnam telling our story, let's create a green future for this wonderful country, that's as powerful as making any film, and it has impact for the next 25 years. It's not like you make it, it's in the cinema and then it's finished. Okay. So I find this more impactful than what I used to do, but I loved it. I love telling stories.
Maybe we can have a story as a concluding of this talk here, because I remember in Telegraph interview with you back in 2006 or something, you said you're sitting at the Scottish mountain and you're saying to yourself, Mark, I'm not making enough of a difference before you move from filmmaking into becoming a CEO in wind and solar. Now, 20 years later, say you're in the Vung Tau mountain now, what would you say to yourself at this moment?
I'd say, that's a good question. I'd say I'm not satisfied with the scale of renewable adoption yet in Southeast Asia, but it feels like it's coming. It feels like there's a movement across people to want to make it happen, and therefore I'm in the right country at the right time trying to make a positive difference, and therefore I'm here for good. And so I would say, thank goodness I've had all that experience that's given me all that wisdom these last 20 years. Now let's apply it here in Southeast Asia with creating a headquarters here in Vietnam for the world. I want to do Global Solar One, right? And I want it based in this building.
Well, right. Okay. Thank you very much. Maybe we should go to Vung Tau mountain one day and find out.
So many nice snakes in that mountain.
Before I do the final subscription segment, I wonder, do you have any last words, message for our audience?
I think I would just like to acknowledge how fabulous a country this is to work in. How can-do everybody is, which makes it so nice to work here because you get the positive energy of of kind of youth and good people. And if anybody's watching who can make a decision to choose not to buy gas power or coal power anymore, take that decision and buy renewable energy and make your piece of the difference to make our planet stay stable and stay green.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark.
Pleasure.
And so in this talk here, we've been listening to Mark from the UK, now developing in solar energy in Vietnam. As we move into the Christmas season, why don't you take this opportunity to contact Mark and Shire Oak to find out how much solar power your rooftop can have and how much it can bring down your electricity bill. And Mark promised not to install solar panel on top of your chimney so that Santa Claus can still come down and give you gifts. Now, subscribe to us today so that you don't miss next month's video on the holiday special on top leader, on top issues in top industry. From Saigon Times team and from Mark's team in Shire Oak, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.